Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com with the final video in this particular series of Intro to React videos. And in this one we're going to be installing and configuring Router. Now what does Router do? Now when you're using React, you're creating a front-end rendered website. So you have no server to have sort of like endpoints. So usually you'd have a website like xyz.com slash whatever, slash this, slash that. And usually you'd have a back-end server that when you go to that website, it sends a request for that page and your server responds with it. Okay? But technically your entire application is just this one page. That's why React, Angular, Vue are for creating single page applications. It may feel like a website with many pages, but it's really just one big JavaScript file that's running and just changing what's on the screen. But you may still want to give the feel of a multi-page application by making it where when you're in different parts of the website, a different URL shows up in the URL bar. So what React Router or the router in Angular or the router in Vue, what they're doing is they're trying to mock the behavior of having that back-end server handling your routing, but on the front end. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to install React Router, and there's a lot to it, so there's a lot you can learn with React Router and a lot of cool extra new sort of tools it gives you. We're not going to quite get into every little bit. This is just to kind of get you started so you can see what the basic concepts are with React Router. So the first thing we have to do is, well, install React Router in NPM. So let's head back to our project. Same project that I've been using since the beginning. So I'm going to kill the server that I have running right now, and I'm going to run that command, paste, npm install react router dom. That's going to install React Router. So if we go to our package.json, after installing it, I should see React Router added to my dependencies. So React DOM, React Router. These are all my dev dependencies. These you don't need to worry about. This is all Webpack stuff. This just all handles how Webpack translates and Babel translates all your JSX and builds your final website. Okay. Basically, for now, just treat that as under the hood magic. Okay, we like under the hood magic. Okay, but yes, we have React Router DOM now. Cool. So now we're gonna go set up router. So we're gonna go back to our app component. Okay, which is still kind of in our state after our use reducer lesson. Okay, and let's go back here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna add this import in our app component. This is gonna import all our router stuff. Okay. Cool. And essentially at the end of the day, under the hood, router is context. Okay, router is context that's providing a certain underlying functions and things to your component tree to allow there to be routing. Okay, how does it do that? It doesn't matter, but just to give you a little deeper appreciation. So we're bringing in all this stuff. So let's read through it. We're bringing in BrowserRouter, which is essentially that's really the context. That's like the provider that's providing the router to your thing. But we're not going to call it BrowserRouter because that just sounds funny. So we're going to change it to router. You can do that. So when you're destructuring named imports like this, you can actually use this as keyword to rename it. Okay? So I'm saying I want to import BrowserRouter specifically, but I want to call it router. Okay, so that's what this is going to end up wrapping around our app component, kind of like our other context is. And that's going to provide all that information to all the components. Switch, okay, the switch is going to end up determining sort of where the different routes go, like what components show up. The routes define the different URLs, and the link is how we can create buttons to click to those URLs. Okay, so those are the four main components we want. Okay, so let's do this. Let's first wrap this in router. So we're going to put router now around this whole thing. Router. Okay, and I have to put the closing tag at the end here. Control X. Cool. So router's added. And let's see here. Let's clean this up a little bit. I'll leave the use reducer there for the moment. Cool. Let's go back to here. So as you see here, the router's wrapping the whole component. Okay, and then we have some buttons that link to different links. We'll create that eventually. And then we have routes that wrap component. So you see that the component is a child of the route, and then that's how the router knows. So when the URL says this slash about, it's going to run this component. Okay, and that's all inside the switch component, and that's where it shows up. So what I want to do is I want the switch to be, let's see here, where should it be? We're going to put it below other. So it's going to show up below other. That's where our switch is going to be. Okay. Cool. And then our switch is going to have different routes. So let me just save this. This should format this a little bit nicer. There we go. That looks a bit better. How did I do that? I have a formatter called Prettier. Okay, just to show you in VS Code. Basically what I do is you just look at formatter, format. So my default formatter is Prettier, and then I have format on save. So whenever I hit the save command manually, it'll automatically run the formatter on my code and make it pretty. I also have autosave turned on. When it autosaves, it does not format. Okay. Switch. So again, in the switch is when we start doing our routes. So I'm not going to make a whole bunch of components right now, because that'll take a while. But what we can do, so again, see a route, we're going to specify this path prop that tells it when to use that route. So we'll just say path. So when we're on when we're in the main page, okay, which is just slash, we're just going to have an h1 here. h1, welcome, enter my living room, or welcome to my home. Okay, and then we'll create another route. We'll create a few of these, because it doesn't have to be necessarily just a component. The idea is just whatever the child is won't show up unless that route is hit. Okay, so I'll just create two more. This one will be the living room, and this one will be kitchen. Okay, so welcome to my living room. Welcome to my kitchen. Cool. Okay, so there's our switch with our different routes. Now let's just add a few buttons. We'll put those right above. So I'm just going to add a link tag. Okay, and then what's the property we need to, I think it's 2. Yep, 2/users. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do link to slash. This will be home. Okay. And we're going to make this a button, just so that way it looks like a button. Button. Home. And let's just do a few of these. So living room. Kitchen. Living room. Oh, no, has to be like just like the other one. So living room. Kitchen. Okay, cool. So that's all set up. So I think we have this all set up now. So again, just to kind of recap, the router is essentially providing the router to the whole component tree. So I could actually import all these other, I could import link, switch, and route to, let's say, grandchild, and I could still use the same routes down, use the same components down there, because this router is making it possible for my entire component tree to use the router. So I can have multiple switches, routes, all this fun stuff. So I can set up this pattern in multiple places. But let's run, see how it works. npm run dev. Okay, cool. Let's take a look at the dev tools so you can see how this looks like under the hood. So you see now my component tree is starting to get a little bit more complicated. Because see, we have app, but we have a couple providers going on. We got the BrowserRouter, okay, which is really like has this other router component, which has a router provider in it, which has a router history provider, and then we have our context provider that we created that has hello. So you see, you have this all these in there before we get to our actual components. There's my other component, which has grandchild in it from the previous videos, just still floating around there. But now we see we have this welcome to my home. So we have these, but see, you don't see all three. You don't see welcome to my home, welcome to kitchen, welcome to. Now, if I click on living room, okay, welcome to my home. It still says welcome to my home, so that's not cool. We'll come back to that though. It does change the URL though. So you see the link change the URL. And then that's how this works. It's reading it off the URL. Okay. But this did not. Oh, did I change the text in these? Let's see here. Welcome to. No, I did. Living room. My living room. Okie dokie. Okay, I think maybe it does have to be a component. So let's try that out. We'll try out a component and see if that makes a difference. New file. I'm just going to create one component. We're just going to call it room.jsx. We'll make it real simple. Okay, I'm going to copy the grandchild just to get the boilerplate. I don't even actually need to do that. I just want this. The React import, room, export, const, room equals props. And it's just literally going to be an h1 welcome to my props.room. Okay, and then that's got to be curly brackets. And there we go. That's that component. That's literally it. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to app, import that component, import room from /room.jsx. Okay, and then let's change these out. So route here, we're going to say this is now going to be room, except now the props equals home. See how did I word that? Welcome to my Okay. Okay, and this will be welcome to my living room. So you see the room component, and let me make this prettier. There we go. Room, kitchen. So it should show the kitchen component. Let's see if that's all working. Okay, that refreshed. So you have to go back to the main page, and I'll come back to why you're getting that. Okay, cool. So this is working so far. Let's see here. Welcome to my. Well, doesn't have a slash there, so it's probably complaining about that. Welcome to my. Let's see here. Route. Link anchor router. Switch route. Let's take a look. Props home. But home is not showing up. And that's not switching. Ah, here I wrote props. This should be home. Room is the name of the prop, not props equals kitchen. I'm rushing. Okay, so let's see here. Save that. Now let's go back over here. Let's try this again. I have to go back to the main page. Okay. So now it says welcome to my home. It still doesn't update when I click that. I do remember because the idea, since it's the same component, it's not rendering a new component. There is a trick to that. Or we can just create multiple components. So let's just do that. So what I'm going to do is to make life easier, instead of making multiple files, okay, I'm just going to make multiple components here. Okay, so let's also include kitchen. And let's include living room. Okay, and they all pretty much work the same way. They just have a different name. And then I can go over here, import those. Kitchen, living room. Okay, and now I can change these from room. This one's going to be this one should be living room, and then this one should be kitchen. Okay, so now there are three different components, and the reason why that matters is that router tries to be efficient. So if they're the same component, it won't rebuild it, so it won't show the updated prop. So that's the issue I was running into before. So let's go back to the main page. Okay, let's see if this works now. If I click on living room, still the route's changing, but the component is not. Let's see here, switch. The route children. Let's just take a look at the boilerplate here. Make sure I'm not missing something. So there's a switch. Each one's wrapped in route. And the components in there. That makes perfect sense. Link to. And then you have your link tags. And the whole thing is wrapped in router. Okay. Here's what I'm going to do. I have a feeling maybe the my context, the extra provider. Let's try to see if that's causing the issue. So let's get rid of that provider. And at the same time, let's just get rid of other as a component. There we go. So let's see if that gives us any different behavior. Now the reason why this happens, see, it's refreshing after the route is changed. And what happens is that when you have a backend and your website's delivered from the backend, which is not necessarily how people usually do it nowadays, is that the backend would get the URL and send the page for that URL. So when it refreshes, it's trying to send a request to a server that doesn't exist and saying, hey, I want the kitchen website, but it doesn't exist. There is a way to kind of adjust your server so that way no matter what the URL is, it sends it back to that main page, and then the router will pick up the URL, but that's a discussion for another day. Okay, so welcome to my home. So let's try this again. Nope. Okay, so the links are working. It is the routes that are not. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, I think I just realized what the problem was. It's the order that I have them in. Because the way it works is that it's going to check the first one and see if it matches. So since the slash is always going to be the first character in there, it matches that one right away. So this has to be... I could change... There's two things I could do. I could make this... I have to add another property that makes this an exact match. So that way it knows it has to be an exact match. Or I can just change the order. So I'm just going to hit Control X. Copy that and put this one last. So that way it checks to see if that one matches last. Okay, so that way it doesn't get stuck there. Because what it's just doing is just trying to see which one has the route altogether. So since the slash, this technically is in the URL, a slash, that matches right away. Okay, although I think I changed the wrong thing. I changed the link. So I need to change the route. So let me cut the route. It's the one that it's causing us the problem, and then put it over here. Save. So that way it checks that one last. So now let's see if that makes a difference. Let's see if that's the winner. Again, let's get rid of this. So living room, and now it works. Okay, so see, that's the long way to something that was very simple. Router works. It just takes whatever's in the switch component, and based on the route up here, which changes because of the link component, it changes what component's being rendered here. So we can actually go down here and see right now it's kitchen, but if I click the different buttons, see it changes to living room, room. You can see the component changing because which one, it only renders the one that It's the first one that matches the route. Okay? A switch is only going to render one route at a time. So it's going to render the first one that matches. The problem I had before is that slash is always going to match because the very beginning of the URL is a slash. The other way I could have fixed that is I could have made it an exact match. And let me just find out where we do that. Nav link, here we go. I think it has to be exact. Yeah, so you would just add the word exact before to. So then in that case, if I wanted to go back to the way I had it before, where I had the root route first, I would have to make sure that this is to be exact path. This way, this has to be exactly that. It can't be something that matches that. It has to be exactly just a slash. So this way it would still look at the other ones. So now if I go back and I get rid of this, this should work again. And it does. Okay, so those are the two ways I could solve the problem we had for that bit. But so basically, with React Router, you can make your components feel like you have several pages in the website because you can have links, and the links toggle different components. This does create another issue, though. How do I send information to those components? Like in this setup, it's pretty straightforward. I can actually put the props and stuff right here, since I'm actually putting the component between the route. Okay, that's fine. There are other times where you're going to push them to a different route via a function because it's happening after you do something else. So you would want to read through the documentations and learn how you can use things like queries to send information to a component when you need to. But this is the basics of React Router. With that, you can kind of play around with that. So technically, all that other stuff I took out, I didn't need to take out. I just had to fix the order of the routes. But hopefully this has been a fun journey in learning React. Have a great day and enjoy. And make sure to join the devnursery.com Slack channel and the Discord channel. And follow me and subscribe on YouTube. Thanks.